The rain battered the windows of the old diner, a relentless drumbeat that matched the storm in Ellie's heart. She was 22, staring into a chipped coffee mug, her reflection warped and trembling. Her family's words: failure, disgrace, unnatural, cut deeper than the cold seeping through her thin jacket. Ellie Harper had always been the black sheep of her small-town Virginia family. The Harpers were pillars of their community: her father, a pastor; her mother, the perfect homemaker; her older brother, Caleb, the golden child destined for law school. But Ellie, she was the one who never fit, the one who dared to love differently. At 18, she'd come out to her family, her voice shaking but resolute. The memory of that night still burned: her father's Bible slamming shut, her mother's tears, Caleb's silence. They'd called her a sinner, a failure, and sent her packing with nothing but a backpack and a broken heart. Now, for years later, she sat in this diner on the edge of Richmond, waiting for someone who might change everything. Her name was Maya, a 27-year-old artist with a laugh that could melt ice and eyes that saw straight through Ellie's walls. They'd met 3 months ago at a local art gallery, where Maya's vibrant paintings had drawn Ellie in like a moth to a flame. Their connection was instant. A spark that terrified Ellie as much as it thrilled her. She hadn't told Maya about her family, about the weight of their rejection. Not yet. The bell above the diner door jingled, and Ellie's head snapped up. Maya walked in, her dark hair damp from the rain, her smile as warm as the diner's flickering lights. She slid into the booth across from Ellie, her presence a quiet anchor in the storm. "You look like you're carrying the world," Maya said softly, her hand brushing Ellie's. The touch sent a shiver through her, a reminder of what she stood to lose if she let fear win. "I'm okay," Ellie lied, her voice barely above a whisper. She wanted to tell Maya everything about the letters she'd stopped opening, the phone calls she'd stopped answering, the family she'd once loved so fiercely. But the words stuck in her throat, heavy with shame. Instead, she forced a smile. "How was your day?" Maya's eyes narrowed, seeing through the deflection. "Ellie, you don't have to hide from me. Whatever it is, I'm here." Her voice was gentle but firm, a promise that made Ellie's chest ache. For the first time in years, someone saw her, not the failure, not the outcast, but her. And yet, the fear of losing that, of being rejected again, kept her silent. The diner's hum faded as Ellie's thoughts spiraled. She'd built a life here in Richmond, working odd jobs, scraping by in a tiny apartment. But her family's judgment followed her like a shadow. Every time she saw a missed call from her mother or a letter in her father's sharp handwriting, the wounds reopened. They didn't know about Maya, didn't know how her love had started to heal the cracks in Ellie's heart. But they would find out soon enough, because Caleb was coming to town. Her brother had texted her last week, out of the blue. "We need to talk. I'm in Richmond next weekend." No explanation, no warmth, just a demand. Like always. Ellie hadn't responded, but the message gnawed at her. What did he want? To drag her back to that house of judgment, to remind her she'd never be enough. The thought made her stomach churn, but a small, stubborn part of her wondered if maybe, just maybe, he'd changed. Maya's voice pulled her back. "Ellie, you're doing it again. Disappearing into your head." She leaned closer, her dark eyes searching. "Talk to me, please." Ellie took a shaky breath, her fingers tightening around the mug. "My brother's coming to town," she said finally, the words tasting like ash. He's part of why I left home. My whole family is. They didn't accept me. For who I am. For who I love." Maya's expression softened, but there was a fire in her eyes, a quiet strength. "They don't get to define you, Ellie. You're not their failure. You're incredible. She reached across the table, her hand covering Ellie's, steady and warm. And I'm not going anywhere. Ellie wanted to believe her, wanted to let Maya's words drown out the echoes of her family's condemnation. But the past was a heavy chain, and Caleb's visit felt like a storm on the horizon. She didn't know what he wanted, but she knew one thing. She wasn't the same scared girl who'd left home 4 years ago. She'd built something here, something worth fighting for. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to face her brother and the truth she'd been hiding all along. As the rain slowed to a drizzle outside, Ellie squeezed Maya's hand, a silent vow to herself. She wouldn't let her family's judgment define her anymore. But the road ahead was uncertain, and the weight of her secreta, truth even Maya didn't know threatened to unravel everything. The next morning, Ellie woke to the buzz of her phone on the nightstand. Caleb's name flashed on the screen, and her stomach twisted. Meet me at the park on Main Street. 2 p.m. Don't ignore this. No, please. No softness, just the same commanding tone that had always made her feel small. She stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the reply button, but she couldn't bring herself to respond. Instead, she tossed the phone onto the bed and buried her face in her hands. Her apartment was a cramped one-bedroom, cluttered with second-hand furniture and half-finished sketches she'd started but never completed. It was a far cry from the pristine Harper family home, with its polished floors and Bible verses framed on every wall. But this was hers, a sanctuary she'd carved out despite everything. Maya had spent the night, her presence a quiet comfort, but she'd left early for a gallery meeting. Now, alone with her thoughts, Ellie felt the weight of Caleb's message pressing down on her. She hadn't seen her brother in 4 years, not since the night she'd left. He'd stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching as she packed her bag. He hadn't stopped her, hadn't said a word, just stared, his silence louder than their father's sermons. Ellie had spent years wondering what he'd been thinking, whether he'd felt anything at all. Now he was here, in her city, demanding a meeting like he still had a claim on her life. By noon, Ellie was pacing the apartment, her nerves fraying. She wanted to tell Maya about the meeting, but the words wouldn't come. Maya didn't know the full story, not about the fight that had shattered her family, not about the secret Ellie had buried so deep it felt like a betrayal to even think about it. She glanced at the clock. 1 hour until she had to face Caleb. She grabbed her jacket and headed out, determined to meet him on her terms. The park was quiet, the autumn leaves crunching under her boots as she walked. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and fading summer. Ellie spotted Caleb before he saw her, sitting on a bench near the fountain. He looked older, his jaw sharper, his shoulders broader, but his posture was the same, rigid, unyielding, like he was still carrying the weight of their father's expectations. He was wearing a tailored coat, too formal for a park bench, a reminder of the life Ellie had left behind. Ellie, he said as she approached, his voice flat but not unkind. He stood, towering over her as he always had. You look different. She crossed her arms, her heart pounding. 4 years will do that. What do you want, Caleb? He didn't answer right away, his gaze flicking over her like he was searching for the sister he'd known. I'm in town for a conference. Thought we should talk. Talk? Ellie's laugh was bitter. You didn't have much to say when I was leaving, when Dad was screaming about hellfire and Mom was crying like I'd died. You just stood there. Caleb's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. I was 20. Ellie. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to. He trailed off, running a hand through his hair. I'm not here to fight. I just want to understand. Understand what? She snapped, her voice rising. Why I'm such a disappointment. Why I couldn't just be the perfect daughter you all wanted. I'm done explaining myself. Caleb. That's not what I meant, he said, his tone sharper now. I'm trying to figure out how we got here. How you just disappeared. Mom and Dad theory not the same since you left. None of us are. Ellie's chest ached. A mix of anger and guilt she couldn't untangle. They made their choice. They called me a failure. A sinner. Because of who I love. You think I wanted to leave? I had nowhere else to go. Caleb's eyes softened. Just for a moment. And Ellie caught a glimpse of the brother she'd once adored, the one who'd taught her to ride a bike. Who'd snuck her extra cookies when their mother wasn't looking. But that boy was gone. Replaced by this man who carried their family's weight as heavily as she did. I didn't come to drag you back, he said finally. I needed to see you. To know you're okay. I'm okay, Ellie said. But the words felt hollow. She wasn't okay not with Caleb standing here. Stirring up memories she'd tried to bury. Not with the secret she was still keeping. The one that could change everything if it ever came to light. She thought of Maya. Of the life they were building. And the fear of losing it all tightened like a vice around her heart. Caleb opened his mouth to say something. But his phone buzzed, cutting him off. He glanced at it, his expression shifting to something unreadable. I have to go, he said, standing. But this isn't over. Ellie, we're not done. As he walked away, Ellie felt the ground shift beneath her. She didn't know what Caleb wanted. But she knew one thing. He wasn't here just to talk. There was something else. Something he wasn't saying. And whatever it was tied to the truth she'd been hiding for years, a truth that could either set her free or destroy everything she'd fought for. Ellie didn't go straight home after the park. Her mind was a tangle of anger and fear. Caleb's words looping like a broken record. She wandered the streets of Richmond. The city's pulse a faint distraction from the storm inside her. By the time she reached her apartment, the sun was dipping low, painting the sky in shades of fire and shadow. Maya was waiting for her, sitting cross-legged on the couch with a sketchbook in her lap. You look like you've seen a ghost, Maya said, setting the sketchbook aside. Her voice was light, but her eyes were sharp, reading Ellie's tension like an open book. What happened? Ellie dropped her keys on the counter, avoiding Maya's gaze. I saw Caleb, she said, the words heavy. It was intense. Maya stood, crossing the room to stand beside her. Your brother. What did he want? I don't know, Ellie admitted, her voice cracking. He said he wanted to understand. But it felt like more than that. Like he's digging for something. She sank onto the couch, her hands twisting together. I didn't tell him about you. I couldn't. Maya's expression flickered, a mix of hurt and understanding. You don't have to hide me. Ellie, I'm not ashamed of us. It's not that, Ellie said quickly, her eyes meeting Maya's. I'm scared. Of what they'll say. What they'll do. You don't know them. They're not just judgmental theory relentless. They'll try to tear us apart. Maya knelt in front of her, taking her hands. Let them try. I'm not going anywhere. Her voice was fierce. A vow that made Ellie's heart ache with gratitude and fear. Maya didn't know the whole story. Didn't know the secret Ellie had kept even from her. The weight of it pressed against her ribs, demanding to be let out. I want to tell you something, Ellie said, her voice barely above a whisper. But I'm afraid it'll change how you see me. Maya's grip tightened. Nothing you say will change how I feel. I love you. Ellie. All of you. Ellie's breath hitched, the word love landing like a spark in dry grass. They'd danced around it for months, never quite saying it. But now it hung between them, raw and real. She wanted to say it back. to let the words spill out. But the secret stopped her. Instead, she leaned forward, kissing Maya softly, letting the touch say what she couldn't. The next few days were a blur of tension and routine. Ellie went to her job at a local bookstore, shelving novels and ringing up customers. But her mind was elsewhere. Caleb hadn't texted again, but she felt his presence like a storm cloud. She kept expecting him to show up at the bookstore, at her apartment, at the gallery where Maya was preparing for her next exhibit. The uncertainty was suffocating. On Thursday, Maya convinced Ellie to come to the gallery after work. The space was alive with color. Maya's paintings lining the walls bold strokes of red and blue, capturing emotions Ellie could never put into words. Maya was in her element, directing workers and chatting with the curator. Her energy infectious. Ellie watched her from a corner, her heart swelling with pride and something deeper. Something that scared her as much as it thrilled her. "You're staring," Maya teased, catching her eye from across the room. "Can't help it," Ellie called back, a genuine smile breaking through her worry. For a moment, she let herself forget Caleb, forget her family, forget the secret that haunted her. But the moment shattered when her phone buzzed in her pocket. Another text from Caleb: "We need to finish our conversation. Tomorrow. Coffee shop on Gray Street. 10 a.m. Ellie's stomach dropped. She didn't want to go, didn't want to face whatever Caleb was holding back. But she knew she couldn't run forever. She'd spent 4 years running, and it hadn't erased the past. Maybe it was time to stop. That night, lying in bed with Maya's arm draped over her, Ellie stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. The secret she'd kept was more than just her love for Maya, more than her family's rejection. It was a truth about her father, about the man he'd been before the pulpit, before the Bible verses and the sermons. A truth that could unravel the Harper family's perfect facade and Ellie's life along with it. She didn't know if she was ready to face it, but Caleb's return was forcing her hand. Tomorrow, she'd meet him. Tomorrow, she'd decide how much truth she could bear to tell. The coffee shop on Gray Street was crowded, the air thick with the scent of espresso and freshly baked pastries. Ellie arrived early, claiming a corner table where she could watch the door. Her hands were clammy, her heart racing as she rehearsed what she'd say to Caleb. She'd spent the night wrestling with her secret, debating whether to tell Haim or anyone. Maya had sensed her unease, but Ellie had brushed it off, promising to explain later. Now, as the clock ticked closer to 10, she wasn't sure she could keep that promise. Caleb walked in right on time, his presence commanding attention even in the bustling shop. He spotted her immediately, weaving through the crowd with a confidence that made Ellie's stomach twist. He sat down across from her, his expression unreadable. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice low but steady. "Let's make this quick," Ellie replied, her tone sharper than she intended. "What do you want?" "Caleb." "Really?" He leaned back, studying her. "I told you. I want to understand. Why you left. Why you cut us off. Mom and Dad, they're not perfect. Ellie, but they're still family. They miss you." Ellie's laugh was hollow. "Miss me? They threw me out. Caleb called me a failure because I love women. You think I chose to leave? I had no choice." Caleb's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. For the first time, Ellie saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes, and it threw her off balance. She'd expected anger, judgment. Not this. "I was wrong," he said finally, his voice quieter. "I should have said something back then. I should have stopped them." His words hit her like a punch, stealing her breath. She'd spent years hating his silence, but hearing him admit it was different. It didn't erase the pain, but it cracked something open inside her, something she wasn't ready to face. Why now? She asked, her voice trembling. Why come here after all this time? Caleb hesitated, his fingers tapping the table. I found something, he said at last. A letter. In Dad's study. A few months ago. It was addressed to you. But he never sent it. I read it. Ellie. It changes things. Ellie's heart stopped. A letter. Her mind raced, latching onto the secret she'd kept buried. She'd always known there was more to her father's anger, to the way he'd turned on her so fiercely. But a letter. What could it say that Caleb thought was worth crossing state lines to tell her? What did it say? She asked, her voice barely audible over the coffee shop's hum. Caleb shook his head. I didn't bring it. I wanted to talk to you first, to see if you'd even listen. It's about Dad. About why he reacted the way he did. It's not just about you being gay. Ellie, there's more. Her pulse pounded in her ears. She wanted to demand answers, to shake the truth out of him. But fear held her back. The secret she'd carried for years, the one she hadn't even told Maya, was tied to her father, to a moment she'd overheard as a teenager. A conversation that had shattered her image of him. Could Caleb's letter be connected? Did he know? I need to see it, she said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. If it's about me, about our family, I deserve to know. Caleb nodded, his expression grim. I'll bring it tomorrow. But Ellie, you need to be ready. This isn't just about you or me. It's bigger than that. He left shortly after, promising to meet her again the next day. Ellie stayed at the table, staring into her untouched coffee, her mind a whirlwind. The secret she'd kept was a memory from when she was 16, sneaking downstairs for a glass of water late at night. She'd heard her father's voice, low and anguished, talking to someone on the phone. I can't keep this up, he'd said. I've been lying to them all. To her. Ellie hadn't understood then, but the words had stayed with her. A puzzle she'd never solved. Until she came out, and his reaction as rage had made her wonder if the lie was about her. Now, Caleb's words hinted at a truth that could unravel everything. Ellie didn't know if she was ready to face it, but she knew she couldn't keep running. She left the coffee shop and headed to the gallery, needing Maya's warmth, her strength. When she arrived, Maya was hanging a new painting, her hands streaked with paint, her smile a beacon in the chaos of Ellie's thoughts. You okay? Maya asked, wiping her hands on a rag as she crossed the room. Ellie shook her head, the weight of the day crashing down. Caleb knows something, she said, her voice breaking. About my dad. About why they rejected me. I think it's tied to something I've been hiding. Maya pulled her into a hug, her arms a safe haven. Whatever it is, we'll face it together, she whispered. You're not alone anymore. Ellie clung to her, tears burning her eyes. She wanted to believe Maya, wanted to trust that love could carry her through. But as she thought of Caleb's letter, of the secret she'd kept, she couldn't shake the fear that the truth would break them all. Ellie barely slept that night, her dreams a chaotic mix of her father's voice and Caleb's unreadable expression. By morning, her nerves were raw, her body heavy with dread. She hadn't told Maya the full truth yet, but the weight of her secret was becoming unbearable. She'd promised to meet Caleb at noon, at a quiet park on the outskirts of Richmond. He'd said he'd bring the letter, and Ellie wasn't sure if she wanted to read it or burn it. Maya sensed her tension over breakfast, her dark eyes searching Ellie's face. You don't have to do this alone, she said, pouring coffee into Ellie's favorite mug-chipped ceramic one with a faded sunflower. I can come with you. Ellie shook her head, her throat tight. I need to face him myself. But I'll tell you everything after. I promise. The words felt like a vow, one she wasn't sure she could keep. Maya deserved the truth, but Ellie didn't know if she could bear to say it out loud. Not yet. The park was nearly empty when Ellie arrived, the late autumn chill keeping most people indoors. Caleb was already there, sitting on a bench with a manila envelope in his hands. The sight of it made Ellie's stomach lurch. She approached slowly, her boots crunching on the gravel path, her heart pounding so loud she was sure he could hear it. "Here," Caleb said without preamble, holding out the envelope. "It's the letter. I found it in Dad's desk, hidden under some old sermon notes. I don't think he ever meant for anyone to see it." Ellie took the envelope, her fingers trembling. It was heavier than she'd expected, as if the words inside carried the weight of years. She didn't open it. "Not yet. Why didn't you just send it?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Why come all this way?" Caleb's eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw something raw in them: regret. Maybe. Or pain. "Because I owed you this. I stood by when they pushed you out. I didn't fight for you. I'm trying to now." His words stung, reopening wounds she'd thought had scarred over. She wanted to scream at him, to tell him it was too late. But she couldn't. Instead, she clutched the envelope tighter and sat on the bench, her knees weak. "What's in it, Caleb? Just tell me." He hesitated, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. "It's about Dad. About who he was before he became the man we knew. He wrote it to you, Ellie. But it's not just an apology. It's a confession." Ellie's breath caught. A confession. The word echoed the memory she'd buried: the late-night phone call, her father's anguished voice. "I've been lying to them all." She tore open the envelope, her hand shaking, and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Her father's handwriting was unmistakable, sharp and precise, but the words were messy, as if written in a rush. "Dear Ellie," it began, "I've failed you in ways I can't undo. You're not the sinner, here I am." Her eyes blurred with tears as she read, her father's words painting a picture she'd never imagined. He wrote of his youth, of a love he'd buried to fit the mold of the perfect pastor, a love for a man, one he'd walked away from to build the life their family knew. He'd called Ellie a failure to hide his own shame, his own fear of the truth. Ellie's hands trembled as she read the final lines. "I don't expect your forgiveness, but you deserve to know I'm proud of you, for being braver than I ever was." She looked up at Caleb, tears streaming down her face. He was like me," she whispered, the words barely audible. Caleb nodded, his own eyes glistening. "I didn't know, Ellie. Not until I found this. He never told anyone. But I think he pushed you away because you were living the truth he couldn't." The world tilted around her, the park's quiet beauty a stark contrast to the chaos in her heart. Her father, the man who'd condemned her, had been hiding the same secret she'd carried. The irony was bitter, the pain raw. She'd spent years hating him, hating herself, when all along, they'd been mirrors of each other. "I need time," she said, folding the letter carefully. "I don't know what to do with this." Caleb nodded, standing. "I'm staying in town a few more days. When you're ready, I'm here." As he walked away, Ellie sat frozen, the letter burning in her hands. She thought of Maya, of the love they'd built, and the secret she'd kept from her. Her father's confession changed everything and nothing. She still had to face her own truth, and the fear of what it might cost her. But for the first time, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she wasn't as alone as she'd thought. Ellie didn't go to the gallery after the park. She couldn't face Maya, not with her father's letter searing her thoughts. Instead, she wandered the city, the envelope tucked inside her jacket like a ticking bomb. The words she'd read looped endlessly her father's confession. His hidden love. His pride in her bravery. It was too much. Too heavy. And yet it wasn't enough to erase the years of pain. By evening, she found herself at the James River, the water glinting under the fading light. She sat on a bench, the letter in her hands, and let herself cry, not just for her father's truth, but for the girl she'd been scared, rejected, alone. She'd spent so long running from her family's judgment, but now she realized they'd been running too, hiding their own fractures behind a facade of perfection. Her phone buzzed, Maya's name lighting up the screen. "Where are you?" "I'm worried." Ellie's heart clenched. She wanted to go to Maya, to fall into her arms and let the world fade away. But the truth was a barrier she couldn't cross. "Not yet." She texted back a quick "I'm okay. Just need some time," and turned off her phone, needing the silence to think. The letter had cracked open something in Ellie. A realization that her family's rejection wasn't just about her. It was about her father's fear, his shame, his inability to live his own truth. But knowing that didn't make it easier to face Maya, to tell her the secret Ellie had kept, not just about her father, but about herself. The memory of that late-night phone call wasn't the only truth she'd buried. There was more. Something she'd never told anyone. Not even Caleb. When she was 17, a year before she came out, Ellie had found a photo in her father's study. It was tucked inside an old Bible. A picture of him with another man. Their arms around each other. Their smiles unguarded. She'd known, even then, what it meant. But she'd never confronted him. Instead, she'd carried the weight of his secret, letting it shape her own shame. When she came out, his rage had felt personal, like a betrayal of the truth they both knew but couldn't speak. Now, with his letter in her hands, Ellie realized she'd been protecting him all these years, even as he'd hurt her. But she couldn't protect him anymore, not from the truth, not from herself. She needed to tell Maya, to lay it all bare. But the fear of losing her was paralyzing. The next morning, Ellie went to the gallery, her resolve shaky but intact. Maya was there, arranging flowers for the exhibit's opening night. She looked up as Ellie walked in, her face a mix of relief and worry. "You scared me yesterday," she said, setting the flowers down. "What's going on?" Ellie took a deep breath, the letter still in her jacket pocket. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice trembling. "About my dad. About me." Maya led her to a quiet corner, her hand a steady anchor. Ellie started with the letter, recounting her father's confession, his hidden love, his regret. Maya listened, her eyes wide but soft, her hand never leaving Ellie's. When Ellie finished, she hesitated, the final piece of her truth caught in her throat. "There's more," she said finally, her voice barely audible. "When I was 17, I found a photo of my dad with another man. I knew what it meant, but I never told anyone. Not even when he threw me out for being gay. I kept his secret, Maya, because I thought if I said it out loud, it would make everything worse." Maya's expression didn't change, but her grip tightened. "You were protecting him," she said softly, "even after everything he did to you." Ellie nodded, tears spilling over. "I hated him, but I loved him too. And now I don't know what to do with any of it." Maya pulled her close, her voice fierce. "You don't have to carry this alone. Ellie, you're not your father's mistakes, and you're not your family's failure. You're you, and I love you for it." Ellie clung to her, the weight of her secret lifting, if only a little. But the story wasn't over. Caleb was still in town, and her parents were still out there, their silence a wound that hadn't healed. She didn't know if she could face them, but with Maya by her side, She felt a strength she hadn't known she had. The truth was out, at least between them. Now, she had to decide what to do with it and whether she could confront the family that had branded her a failure. The gallery opening was that evening. A whirlwind of lights, music, and people. Maya's paintings glowed on the walls, each one a piece of her soul, and Ellie stood by her side, trying to focus on the moment. But her thoughts kept drifting to the letter, to her father's confession, to the photos she'd found all those years ago. She'd told Maya everything, and while it had freed something in her, it also left her raw, exposed. Caleb's presence in Richmond loomed like a shadow, and she knew she couldn't avoid Heimer the truth much longer. Maya was radiant, moving through the crowd with ease, her laughter a bright thread in the noise. Ellie watched her, her heart swelling with love and fear. She wanted this life, this love, but the past was clawing at her, demanding resolution. When Maya caught her eye and smiled, Ellie forced a smile back, but her hands were trembling. Halfway through the evening, Caleb appeared at the gallery door. Ellie's breath caught as she saw him, his tailored coat out of place among the bohemian crowd. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on her, and for a moment, she wanted to run. But Maya was beside her, her hand brushing Ellie's arm, a silent reminder of her strength. "I didn't expect you here," Ellie said when Caleb approached, her voice tight. "I wanted to see what you've built," he said, his gaze sweeping the gallery. "This is impressive. You've done a lot, Ellie." The compliment caught her off guard, and she didn't know how to respond. Instead, she introduced Maya, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. "This is Maya, my girlfriend." Caleb's eyes flickered, but he extended a hand. "Nice to meet you," he said, his tone neutral but not unkind. Maya shook his hand, her smile polite but guarded. The three of them stood in awkward silence until Caleb spoke again. "I'm leaving tomorrow," he said. "But before I go, I need to know what you're going to do. About the letter. About Dad." Ellie's throat tightened. She hadn't decided. Hadn't even let herself think too far ahead. "I don't know," she admitted. "It's a lot to process. He hurt me. Caleb. You all did. But knowing he was, like me, it changes things. I just don't know how yet." Caleb nodded, his expression softening. "I get it. I think you should talk to them. Mom and Dad. They're not the same people they were 4 years ago. Losing you broke something in them." Ellie wanted to believe him, but the memory of her father's rage, her mother's tears, was still too raw. "I'll think about it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Caleb left shortly after, promising to text before he left town. Ellie felt the weight of his words, the weight of the choice she had to make. She didn't know if she could face her parents, didn't know if she could forgive them. But the letter had shifted something in her, a crack in the wall she'd built around her heart. Later that night, after the gallery had emptied and the lights dimmed, Ellie and Maya sat on the floor, surrounded by empty wine glasses and half-eaten trays of hors d'oeuvres. Maya took Ellie's hand, her thumb tracing circles on her skin. "You're stronger than you know," she said. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you." Ellie leaned against her, tears prickling her eyes. "I want to see them," she said, the words surprising even herself. "Not to forgive them, not yet, but to tell them who I am now, to show them I'm not their failure." Maya kissed her forehead, her voice soft. "Then we'll go together." The decision settled over Ellie like a warm blanket, heavy but comforting. She didn't know what she'd find when she faced her parents, didn't know if they'd listen or turn her away again. But she knew she wasn't the scared girl who'd left 4 years ago. She had Maya. She had her truth. and she had to let tear a piece of her father's heart that proved she wasn't alone. As they cleaned up the gallery, Ellie felt a spark of courage ignite inside her. The road ahead was daunting, but for the first time, she believed she could walk it. The truth had set her free, not from the pain, but from the fear of it. And with Maya by her side, she was ready to face whatever came next. The drive to her childhood home in rural Virginia was a quiet one. The hum of the car a steady backdrop to Ellie's racing thoughts. Maya sat beside her, her hand resting on Ellie's knee. A silent anchor. The letter was in Ellie's bag, folded carefully. Its words burned into her memory. She hadn't told her parents she was coming, hadn't spoken to them in 4 years. But after Caleb's visit, after reading her father's confession, she knew she couldn't wait any longer. The Harper house looked the same. A white colonial with a wraparound porch. Bible verses still hanging in the windows. Ellie's chest tightened as she parked. Memories flooding back, laughter in the backyard. Arguments in the kitchen. The night she'd left with nothing but a backpack. Maya squeezed her hand. "You've got this," she said, her voice steady. Ellie nodded, though her heart was pounding. She climbed the porch steps, Maya behind her, and knocked. The door opened, and her mother stood there, her face older, softer, but still unmistakably hers. "Ellie," she whispered, her eyes wide with shock. "Hi, Mom," Ellie said, her voice trembling but clear. "Can we talk?" Her mother hesitated, then stepped aside, letting them in. The living room was unchanged. The same floral couch. The same framed photos, though Ellie noticed hers were gone. Her father was in his armchair, his Bible open on his lap. When he saw her, he froze, his face a mix of guilt and fear. "Ellie," he said, his voice hoarse. "I didn't expect." "I know," she cut in, her hands clenched at her sides. "But I'm here. This is Maya, my girlfriend, and I need you to listen." Her parents exchanged a glance, and Ellie braced herself for rejection. But her mother gestured to the couch, and they sat, the air thick with tension. Ellie took a deep breath, pulling the letter from her bag. "Caleb gave me this," she said, holding it up. "Your letter, Dad. I read it." Her father's face paled, his hands gripping the arms of his chair. I never meant for you to see that." "But I did," Ellie said, her voice steady now. "And it changes everything. You call me a failure, a sinner, but you were hiding the same truth I was living. You loved someone, Dad, and you walked away from it. I won't do that. I love Maya, and I'm not ashamed." Her mother's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. Her father looked down, his shoulders slumping. "I was wrong," he said finally, his voice breaking. "I was scared, Ellie. Scared of what it meant, of what people would say. I took it out on you, and I'll never forgive myself for that." Ellie's throat tightened, tears spilling over. She'd wanted his apology, but hearing it was different. Real and painful. "I needed you," she said. "I needed you to love me, and you didn't. But I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to show you who I am. I'm not your failure. I'm happy. I'm loved. And I'm proud of who I am." Maya's hand found hers, a quiet strength that grounded her. Her mother spoke then, her voice trembling. "We were wrong, Ellie. I was wrong. I thought we were protecting you. But we lost you instead." The room fell silent, the weight of 4 years settling between them. Ellie didn't know if she could forgive them, didn't know if the wounds would ever fully heal. But as she looked at her parents, at the cracks in their perfect facade, she saw something new: regret, love, a chance to rebuild. I don't know where we go from here, she said, standing. But I needed you to know I'm not running anymore. I'm living my truth. And I hope you can learn to live yours. Her father stood, his eyes wet. I'm proud of you, Ellie, he said, echoing the letter. I always was. They left shortly after. The conversation unfinished but begun. In the car, Maya pulled Ellie close, her voice soft. You were incredible. Ellie smiled through her tears, the weight of the past lighter, if only a little. Her family had branded her a failure, but the truth her father's, her own had left them speechless. She didn't know if they'd ever fully reconcile, but she knew one thing. She was no longer defined by their judgment. With Maya by her side, she'd found a home in her own truth, and that was enough.